Hi everyone, it's Øyvind Martinsen here, and welcome to this video where I will teach you how to meter the light manually and how to compensate with a graduated neutral density filter on the sky in landscape photography. In this video you will see I work with only one lens, the 80mm Carl size lens, and it's important you don't need many lenses, but you need to learn to see how this lens see the world. So learn how your lenses see, and you can use only one. You will see I used only one here for these sequences in this video, and it's amazing what you can do. Very often you will see me work in a low camera position, close to the ground. Then I can arrange the foregrounds very beautifully and according to the sky, and balance these two elements. And I meter the light on the foreground. I spot meter the light in manual light metering mode, and I select the aperture. And normally I use between aperture f16 and f22 to get the depth of field from the foreground, the close foreground, and to infinity in the horizon. So, and normally I work in ISO 200. So this is a very good approach when you work with landscape photography, manual light metering. First select the aperture, the ISO, and then measure the spot meter the light on the foreground, adjust the shutter speed, and then compensate the sky with a graduated neutral density filter. So we'll see many interesting sequences here. They are taken basically in Østfold in Norway, and by the Oslofjord and in the Lake Vansjø. You'll also see sequences with Adobe Lightroom, and you can apply these methods and approaches in your own work. So now, after this video, it's important you go out in the field, do your own work. You can post images, your best work, in the discussion forum, and also ask questions. So remember, work hard and select harder. I'll see you in the next sequence. Hi, it's Øyvind Martinsen here. I am by the Oslofjord here. It's winter, not so much snow here now, but we have some snow and ice and some frosty rocks, and we are hoping for a very spectacular sunset behind us here. So let's see what happens. I'm going to use my size 18mm wide-angle lens with my cable release, my camera, and the tripod. In my pocket I have picked 3 filters. I have the 4-stop hard edge Gale Ravel graduated neutral density filter. I have the 2-stop hard, and I have the 3-stop hard Daryl Benson reverse graduated neutral density filter. So I'm ready to go. Now I just have to wait for the light, and I'm going to start looking for a foreground that might match what happens on the sky. So let's go to work. Now I found some beautiful rock formations here. This is my foreground, and I'm looking directly to the sunset. I'm going to work in manual light metering, and then I'm going to spot meter the light on the rock here, and then I balance the light on the sky with the graduated neutral density filter. So I spot meter the light here, and then I balance the light on the sky with the filter. So when I spot meter the light here in manual light metering mode, I tilt the camera down, so I only get the foreground. Then I measure the light. Now I see it's a little bit overexposure. I'm at f22 because I want a large depth of field from the foreground to infinity, and I need a little bit faster shutter speed, so I adjust the shutter speed. and then one click and I am spot on. And I balance now the light on the sky with a filter, a 4-stop hard edge Gale-Rowell graduated new intensity filter. So let's see. Very nice light here now, very dramatic skies. I handheld the filter. Sometimes I move the filter down during the exposure. Let's say I have a 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds exposure. I can start at the top and move the filter down in the water. So it will be actually a soft filter, but it's a very useful tool if you want to add some extra to the image by moving this filter. So just experiment with it, especially good here at the coastlines. And let's go, let's try one more. Yes, good. These rock formations are very nice. It's a diagonal leading into the frame and it ends up by the sunset. Now I have taken a few frames here and you can see my picture here. I have the rock formations and the beautiful lines here in the foreground, and you see we have the dark skies and the opening in the sky here, this orange stripe. It's an opening in the sky, and we are hoping to get some really powerful colors later when the sun comes further down. Now I have shifted from the 4-stop hard edge Gale-Rowell graduated new intensity filter, and I'm using a 2-stop hard edge. It's not so big contrast right now, so I will get a better balance with the 2-stop hard. So let's see, take one more. Handhold. I'm at 1 second exposure at aperture f22, and this image turned out very good. Yes, it's a very good image, but I want even better, so I wait for more colors. Now it's a little bit less light, it's getting darker, so I had to adjust my manual light metering. So I spot meter on the rock again, and I have to adjust. I need longer shutter speed. Now I'm at 1.6 seconds at f22 and ISO 200. So the rock is perfectly measured now. Then I have to balance the sky with a graduated new intensity filter. Now we have some colors. We have some tint of colors coming in on the sky, and let's see what happens now. It will be very exciting if we have this powerful crimson, red, orange, yellow colors. Let's see. The sun is below the horizon and we have some crimson, red colors on the sky, so I have to work fast now. It will disappear very soon. I'm at 1.6 seconds exposure. Normally I don't use the 2-stop towards the sunrise, sunset or sunrise, but in this case it's working well because the contrasts are not that big now. We have very dark clouds, but we have some opening between the horizon and the sky, and the light from the sun is coming up and colors the sky and the clouds very beautifully. Now it's even more of it. I'm gonna try another composition. I'm gonna tilt my camera a little bit down and adjust a little bit less sky. I bring in only the parts that are having colors. Have the 2-stop. Oh yes, it worked well. Now the colors are soon fading. I have some very good shots now. I will continue to shoot, see if I get it even better. Sometimes there are just small differences, but then I can pick the best on the computer in Adobe Lightroom and see what we get there. Oh, now it's very distinct crimson colors over there. Take a few more shots. Now I have adjusted the shutter speed to 2 seconds exposure because it's a little bit darker now. But we have even better colors, so I'm continuing to shoot. Let's see. So when you're hand holding your filter at long exposure, you have to be trained to hold it still and don't move it sideways. Here you can move it up and down if you want. It's a creative tool, you can move it up and down. It was a very nice sunset-y shoot here. It got some good colors. I have some nice lines in the rocks here in the foreground. So I think this image is a very good one. And we never know what we get when we get out in the field, but sometimes we will be surprised and it will be better than we have imagined, and this is one of these evenings. Hello again. Now I'm inside the warm house and let's see what we can do here in Adobe Lightroom. And first I want to do with this image is to lift the exposure a little bit up so we can see, have some more details and contrasts. Lift the exposure, and we want to increase the contrast to around 28, and the clarity, sharpen the medium tones here around 25, and the vibrance, boosting up the colors and a little bit on the saturation. See, now we have already a much better image, and see the nice colors here. We have the orange, the crimson red, the yellow. We have these nice lines here leading into the frame and ends up here at the sunset. Let's continue down here. We see we have these colors here, and we can reinforce them a little bit by add some saturation here in the HSL section. We have the hue, saturation and the luminance. I want to use the saturation here, so I want to increase the red a little bit up, not much, not too much, not like this, just a tint of a little bit extra. Little on the orange, little bit on the orange, and a little bit on the yellow. Very good. Let's go to the sharpening tool on the details. Drag it up to 58, 1.1, and the masking. Press the option, and the dark areas will not be sharpened because we don't need sharpening on the blank surfaces, like the sky or the sea. Very good. And we want to enable the profile corrections, and I click that, and the chromatic aberration, but I want to keep the vignette and drag it in, and I keep the viewer more inside the frame. If I did the other way, it will be too pale here at the edges, and the eyes of the viewer will disappear out of the frame. So I drag it a little bit in there. And see here in the foreground we have potential for more colors, so I go to the graduated neutral density filter here. I want to warm up the color temperature on the rock here. So I click here and drag upwards. Press the shift button so it don't tilt. If I let go of the shift button, you see you can tilt this around. You can work with that too if you are used to it. Just do, for example, like this. Everything below here now will have effect on what I do here. So what I can do now, I want to warm up the tone here with the color temperature. See here, not too much, not like this, but a tint of warmer tones. Then we get colors on the rock to come more out. But I also want to balance it with the cooler tones on the sky. So I think around here, only 5. See here, this was the starting point, 0, and I drag it up to 5. And we have a little bit warmer tones here. I can also pick a new one to work with the sky. Here I click and drag downwards, and I press the shift button to keep it straight. I can also tilt this one, and I can also adjust here by grabbing the ring here, and then I can, for example, darken or lighten up the sky here a little bit darker. I can also add a little bit saturation if I want to. Not too much like this, and not too little like this. Just a tint or more colors. There. I can drag this a little bit down. We have these beautiful lines here, and here I want to increase the contrast, so I take the brush and only want to increase the contrast first, and adjust the brush size, and I paint over these nice lines here in the center. Let's see what we can do with this. This is too much, too little. We want to increase a little bit contrast here. Can lift the highlights a little bit up. Exposure a little bit, not much. And I want to work with the lines here, and then pick a new one. And here I want to increase the exposure a little bit on the white, the more light lines here. Adjust the brush size, and I paint here only on the white lines here. So it will be a better contrast to the darker tones, and better contrast in the overall image. You see, I didn't do much. If I did this, it would be too much. I only added a little bit extra. There. I think that is balanced. Yep. Let's see it in full frame now. Yes, now we can see we have sharpness from the foreground here, and to the horizon here, because I use aperture f22 and it gives me sharpness from here in the foreground. This is about 40 centimeters from the lens, and here is to infinity. So with a wide angle lens, with an 18mm wide angle lens, I get the sharpness from the foreground here and to the horizon at aperture f22. Press the F button again, go back to normal view, and here I also took another frame out in the field, so let's compare them. I mark them and let's put them up. I press the L button 2 times and darken the areas around. Let's see here. The one on the right side here is the first one, and you see how I have more of the sky here. It's not so bad, but I think this is a stronger composition, more tight and simple and stronger. Here's not really much happening in the image over here, but it has nice blue tones in contrast to the colors here. But this could be good for example, a magazine cover where you want space to put the logo here. For example, you could put the outdoor photographer logo here. But I like this one better because it's simpler and it's stronger. The settings, ISO 200. I used the focal length, the 18mm wide angle lens at aperture f22 at 2 seconds exposure on this one. So I think this is the strongest composition from this shoot. And thank you for watching, and I see you in the next video. In manual mode, manual light metering, and I'm going to spot meter the light here on the foreground. So I turn the camera downwards, I measure the light, and then I adjust the exposure according to the foreground. And when that is set, I compose my intended image. Now I'm going to balance the light, the foreground, with the sky, with the use of a 2-stop hard edge Galen-Rowell graduated Newton-Lensi filter, because I have measured the light manually on the foreground, and I will balance the light on the sky with the filter. So the snow in the foreground will be correctly exposed. If I took this picture without a filter, the sky would go too pale, so I have to use this to get the balance. Yes, it's very good. Let's try to look for another foreground and see what we find. We have to work fast now because the light is fading. Here's another composition. I have a camera position a little bit higher. Very often I work very low in a situation like this, so I can get the foreground beautifully arranged towards that beautiful sky. Let's see now. We balance the light with the filter. Get down. Yes. Now the light is a little bit lower, so I have to adjust the exposure. So I'm gonna turn the camera down and a little bit longer exposure. Recompose. Nice straws here in the foreground. There we go. See now. Yes, that's much better. Good details in the foreground, and balance the light and get out colors on the winter evening skies. Very nice. Hi again, here we are at the computer, and let's go straight up to the settings here for this shoot. I used ISO 200. I used my Carl Zeiss 80mm wide angle lens at aperture f22, and the shutter speed was 0.8 seconds. And as you remember from the video from the field, I spot metered the light here on the snowy foreground. Spot metered the light manually, and I balanced the light on the sky with a graduated neutral density filter. So let's go to work. First of all, I want to make a little bit cooler tone in the image, get a more feeling of cold weather. So I drag the slider on the color temperature to the left a little bit, not much. And I also want to lift the exposure a little bit up, because then we get more details here. So when you spot meter the light on the white surfaces like snow, normally it's very wise to overexposure about 1+ step overexposure, 1+, and because otherwise the snow will be a little bit grayish, more dirty than it really is. So a little bit overexposure on white surfaces. You can of course fine-tune it here in Adobe Lightroom, but it's always best to have your images spot on the light metering. And we go to the contrast here. We want to increase the contrast up to around 25. I want to lift the shadows a little bit up, and I want the clarity, more crispy image. It sharpens the medium tones. And I want to work with the colors, the vibrance and saturation. We have these beautiful colors here on the sky, and I want my image to look like the colors we had on the old Fujichrome Velvia slide films in the old days. So I drag this up to 45, and I want this up to around 30. There. Yes, this is the old Fujichrome Velvia slide film. Good colors. And here we can go to the HSL section, the hue, saturation and luminance, and I want to work with the saturation. So just want to add a little bit tint on the red, a little bit on the purple, and a little bit on the magenta. Yeah, I think there. And see, we have some orange here too. I can do that a little bit here. This is too much, but just a little bit extra. Then we get a better color contrast here from the purple, crimson, red over here, and to the more warm tones here on the right side. We have a nice contrast feel here in colors. And sharpening, you know that now, it's easy, around 58, 1.1 on the radius. And the masking, I press the option button on the keyboard and drag the slider up to around 40, and the dark areas will not be sharpened because you don't need sharpening on the blank surfaces like the sky and the snow, the blank snow. Then get better quality on your image. And I want to enable the profile corrections, and the profile, I want to keep my vignette. This profile correction is very important to use if, for example, you use this wide angle lens, because the horizon can be a little bit curved like this, so it straighten up the horizon. Look now, I remove the profile correction now. Look at the horizon, so it's a little bit curvy. I enable it and it straighten the horizon. It's to correct the optical deviations from the lens, and it's a very nice tool, and each lens has its own life when it comes to optical deviation from a so-called normal view on a photograph, in a photograph. So we can also add some extra vignette here. Not much, only -2. And I also want to work a little bit here on the sky and the reflections in the water, and I want to use the graduated Newton density filter, and we can see here drag downwards, and I can exposure a little bit up, and I also want the shadows a little bit up. I think it was too much on the exposure, a little bit down. So I used the physical graduated neutral density filter out in the field, but I can fine tune it here in Adobe Lightroom, and that's a progression in photography where we can fine tune more on our images. Before when we made a slide with color film, we couldn't do so much, but we had to be very good to get the correct exposures out in the field, and I use the same methods here in the digital world, but I also can fine-tune it and we get it even better. So don't stop using these tools, they are here to stay. Well, I think we are done so far, so let's see the image in the full frame. Yes. Nice. If you wanted to change something on the sky here now, you can always go back. For example, open the graduated Newton density filter here and click on that. You see the area where it's covering the red. And I can, for example, add more saturation, too much or too little. But if you want to fine-tune something, you can always go back, do it again. A little bit more saturation here on the sky, works well. You see here, the blue field here is the Earth shadow, because the sun was going down behind me, and the Earth is sending these shadows up in space, and we can see it as this blue field here. And as the sun goes further down, then this blue border here will go up, and all of a sudden all this crimson will be gone. Then it's night. So this image is taken after sunset. I also took another image out there. It's this one. This was the first composition in this session, and we can compare these two. I marked these two images here. Press the command button down, and I want to use the X and Y here. So let's see, and I press the L button 2 times, and I darken the area around, and we can only view the images. Look at the first one here. We have the colors are more pale, but I like this picture too. I always try to keep some room. Look at this. This is a circle. These are the details I'm looking for in the foregrounds. This is a circle of grass. And always keep some space here between the graphs and the edge of the frame. Or in different pictures, I always try to keep some space between the details here in the foreground and and the edge of the frame, so it's a more clean view for the viewer of this image. So it's actually a line going around here. So always keep some space. Here it wasn't possible to combine this nice circle here. I had to take this into the image, and I don't want to remove them because then I break my ethical rules. I could have removed them with the spot removal tool, but my ethical standards says don't do it, so I keep them. But it's not so bad. So this is nature, and we try to create order from chaos. So I did that by selecting this as the foreground. The same here. This is a line and some space here between the largest grass here. So some space here, and we have a line here. And we have stronger colors here in this image. There are two different images taken with only a few minutes in between them. So out in the field you can always get different images on the same shoot. So normally I can do at least 2 good pictures from one, let's say this one sunset, 2 good foregrounds combined with the sky and the other things in the landscape. Okay, let's go back, press the L button one more time, and the details come back. And I think we are done for now, and thank you for watching, and I see you in the next sequence. Hi everyone, it's Øyvind Martinsen here. I'm here by the coast, by the Oslofjord in Norway. It's a mild December evening, so it's a bit cloudy, but we have some openings in the sky behind here. So maybe we get some spectacular colors at sunset, or maybe not. This is typical one of the days that most people sit at home, or they look out the window and say, oh, it's cloudy, and they don't go out. So I go out because then I can get some spectacular scenes and much better results than if I was home in the sofa. So don't sit at home and wait for inspiration, just go out in the field and see what happens. I think I can get some very good things out of it, even though I don't get the colors. I have some nice colored lesions here in the foreground, and let's see what we can do with them in context to the rest of the landscape. So let's go. Now I'm working with 1.3 seconds exposure time at f16 and ISO 200. This is a nice way to work. I adjusted the tripod here on the rock, and I have a nice position here. I can sit here on the rock, I can work with my filter, and I spot meter the light on the rock here in the foreground, and I balance the sky with a graduated new density filter. Here you can see the landscape. I have these nice colors in the foreground on the rock towards that dark sky, and this is filmed now without a graduated neutral density filter, but I'm going to put on the 2-stop hard edge Gale Revel graduated neutral density filter. See now what we do. Drag the filter down to the horizon. You see, get more dramatic effect, much more interesting. Here we can see an image without the use of the graduated neutral density filter. This is without. You see the sky and the foreground is unbalanced, but see here, this is with filter. Look at that dramatic effect, and it gives me more what I see here now with my eyes out in the field, and even more dramatic in a photograph. So this is what we are looking for when we're out in the field. Sometimes it's better than what we actually see with our eyes and brains. So this is thinking photographically, getting better images than it looks with our eyes and brains in the real world. So now it's time to go in and edit in Adobe Lightroom, and see you there. Hi again, here I am inside on the computer, and let's start here on the top here. We can see the settings. I used ISO 200. I had the 18mm wide angle lens at aperture f16 and at 1.3 seconds exposure. Let's go down here and start with the color temperature. I want to warm it up a little bit. Go to the right here. See, if I go too much it will be too warm, and here is too cold the other way. But I want to be around here. We can fine tune it later if we want to. And to increase some contrast. This picture deserves contrast. And I want to lift the shadows a little bit up, not much. And I want to sharpen the medium tones with the clarity tool. Get more crispy image. See, if I drag it too much it will be too crispy, and the other way it will be too soft. So end up around 25 in this image. Vibrance is a nice way to to saturate your colors, and drag the vibrance up to around 45 and lift this saturation here. There, that's good. So you see I use the vibrance and the saturation here in a combination, and the vibrance is a much smarter tool to saturate because it boosts up the colors that are not so present in the image, so we get more vibrant images. And then we can add some saturation if we want to. See, but not too much, not like this and not like the other way. Go to black and white, but a little bit extra. So it's not truths here, but in the old days when we used film, we could select films that had stronger colors or more tuned down colors. We can do the same here. We have all the old film types in one raw file. And here we see we have these nice colors in the foreground here, and it contains a lot of orange and yellow, and I want to light up these colors, and I use the HSL tool, the hue saturation luminance tool, and here I want to work with the luminance first, and then I drag this slider for orange here. See here, it's gives a better contrast, gives me a better contrast in image with the lighting up these colors a little bit on the yellow. See here, a little bit down on the orange. There, see, now it's already a much better image. And we can also go here on the saturation. We can do the same here, a little bit up on the orange, a little bit up on the yellow. Now we have a stronger image. You see the colors pop out much better and in nice contrast to the more dull tones and colors around here. Let's go down to the sharpening. We do the amount up to 58, radius 1.1, and the masking is the area where we don't want to sharpen. The dark areas here will not be sharpened. I press the option button on the keyboard and drag the slider up to around 40. There we go. And I want to use the lens correction tool and profile correction, and I want to remove chromatic aberrations, which can be the color lines between the edges here of the horizon and the sky. And just click that and it disappears. But I want to keep the vignetting. The vignette there. I also want to add a little bit extra vignette, not much. See, this is too much, the other way around. But I want a little bit to the left here, just to darken the edges of the frame, and then I keep my viewer more inside the frame here. So if you look at the composition, I have some space here between the colors and the edge of the frame. See, all the way around here. So I call that border patrol. So you have to check the edges of your picture and see if there are some interrupting elements here at the edges of the picture. So keep some space between the details here, and then you keep the viewer more in here. Good. Now we have relatively warm tones here in the foreground. I want to cool down and darken the sky a little bit more. So I go up here on the built-in graduated Newton density filter, and I want to darken the sky. Then I click the shift button to keep this straight, and I drag downwards. If I let go of the shift button, you see it will be a pendulum, but if I press the shift button, it will be straight. So we can have it here, and I want to tilt it. Take the line here in the middle, tilt the construction a little bit like this. Then everything above the upper line here will get a full effect of what I do, and there's a graduation between full effect and no effect between the upper line and the lower line. Drag this a little bit more down, and I want to darken the sky a little bit. Drag the slider a little bit to the left. Also darken the shadows. A little bit down on the exposure. There. Not too much. And I also want to make it a little bit cooler tone here in the upper part. So I drag the color temperature a little bit to the left. And get more bluish tone. There we go. A little bit on saturation there, not much. There we go. We close it. So I think we are there. Let's see it in full frame. Press the F button on the keyboard. Here we can see it. Nice contrasts in colors. And I like this. You have also the warm tones here against the colder tones here. And we have some space here at the edges of the frame. And we have a diagonal line here. So I like this. So thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next sequence. Good morning, it's Øyvind Martinsen here. I am by the lakeshore of the Lake Vansjø in Østfold, Norway. And as you can see here, there's a lot of ice here at the lakeshore. I was here yesterday and the lake was covered with a thin layer of ice. But last night we had stormy weather with 20 meters per second winds. And I predicted this would happen. The ice would break and the ice flakes would come in here on the lakeshore. and this is how you can work when you know your area. I can do your landscape analysis, and you can get better foregrounds if you know these things. So I'm going to work here in my 80mm wide-angle lens, my camera, cable release and my tripod. So let's go to work. I'm using aperture f16, ISO 200, and depending on the light, the camera will select the shutter speed for me. I'm working in manual mode, so I have to do it myself. I adjust the shutter speed so I get correct exposure, and I measure the light here on the foreground, on the eyes, and I get that correctly, and then I balance the light on the sky with the graduated neutral density filter. And here you can see the ice here at the lakeshore, and if you listen you can also hear the music from now the sun is up, and I have shifted the composition, and nice ice flakes here in the foreground, and the sun is here with my 3-stop graduated neutral density filter. Hi again, it was a wonderful morning at the Lake Vansjø in Norway, and let's go to work. This ice is very beautiful, so we need to develop this so we can get the best interpretation of this landscape. First I want to increase the contrast, and I want to lift the shadows a little bit up. And I want to add the clarity, sharpen the medium tones here, and I want some colors to come in, and some saturation here. Look now it's already another image, and I want to sharpen up to 58 on the amount, 1 by 1 on the radius, and the masking. Press the option button and drag it up to around 40. Want to do the lens corrections. And I want to keep the vignette, it's there, and add a little bit extra here. Just a little bit at the edges, -2 here. Can be good. Good. That was the basic development. Now we're going to fine tune it. So I want to do something here on the sky. So I use the built-in graduated neutral density filter. And I click here, I drag it downwards, and I hold the shift button down so I keep these lines straight. And I want to lift the shadows here. So we want there, we want the shadows a little bit up, so get a little bit details in the forest, not too much, not like this, but just a little bit up. And if I want, I can add some saturation on the sky, little bit there. And I want to work with the foreground, so I want better contrast here in only the foreground, and I pick a new filter here. Okay, click on the new, and I click and drag upwards, Now we're gonna adjust. We want the exposure lift up, yes, 0.18. We want the highlights a little bit up. We get a better contrast. We want to increase the contrast. A little bit on the saturation. A little bit on the clarity. And I want to change the color temperature a little bit so I get more bluish tone here in the eyes and get more feeling of cold temperatures and winter. So drag it a little bit to the left. Now it's a little bit more bluish. That's a nice contrast to the warmer tones up here. So close that. I think we're getting close. And if I want to fine-tune the blue tone, I can adjust it here in the HSL section and choose the saturation and the blue tone. See here, this is too much, this is too little, but I want a little bit up on the blue tones. There, only +7. So let's check. We have everything. We have the contrast, we have shadows, clarity, and vibrance and saturation. Let's see the picture in full frame. Well, very beautiful. So thank you for watching, and we're gonna go back into the next section. I'll see you there. Hi again, I'm here by the Oslofjord in Norway, at the coastline, and we have a nice sunset, and we have some wind and incoming waves, and I'm gonna play with the waves in the water, around the rocks. I want the sunset in the background, and I'm gonna work on a low camera position, and I'm gonna find a foreground that has some kind of order. In this outdoor photography game and in landscape photography, we have to create order out of chaos to make a strong composition. So I will go to work. I'll see you in the next sequence. It was a very good sunset. I got some good motion in the waves around the rocks. So now it's time to go in and edit in Adobe Lightroom. I'll see you there. Hi again, here I'm back at the computer. This was a very nice sunset. And as I said, when we create our compositions, we try to make order out of chaos in the nature. And I found these rocks here in the foreground. They are in a circular form here. This is a perfect foreground towards that beautiful sunset. So let's go directly to the develop section here. First I want to increase the contrast a little bit up. And I want to lift the shadows. Drag it up so you get more details in the shadows area. Around there. We add some clarity, sharpen and medium tones in the picture. And we want the vibrance. And a little bit saturation here. So we get nice colors here. Yes. And we go down here to the sharpening. Oops, too much. 58 at the amount, 58, and the radius 1.1. I'm going to do the masking. Press the option button and drag the masking up to around 40. and the dark areas will not be sharpened, because you don't need sharpening on blank surfaces like the sky or the water, blank surfaces on the water. We go down here and we want to enable the profile corrections and the chromatic aberration, but I want to keep the vignette, so I go to the profile here, drag the vignette to the left. Also want to add a little bit extra vignette here, drag this one to the left only, not too much like this, but I want just a little bit at the edges of the frame. Very good. And then I want to lift the shadows a little bit more here in the upper part here in a C, and activate the graduated neutral density filter here, and I click and I drag downwards, press the shift button too, then I will keep the line straight here, a bit more down, and then I want to lift the shadows. See here what will happen, get more details there in the dark areas. But I don't want the exposure to be lighter, a little bit darker exposure, but a little bit more up on the shadows. We can also, if you want, add some saturation just in the upper part. There, not too much, not like this, just a little bit extra. Then we close it. I also want to increase the contrast just here in the foreground, so I can make a new graduated neutral density filter. Click on that. But now I want to click and drag upwards. Then everything below here will have another contrast. So first I take this down and I add contrast. And get better contrast here in the foreground, and lift the highlights a little bit. So, and you see these nice lines here in the water, and I want to enhance them by lifting the exposure a little bit up on just this here. So start here to paint with my brush, the brush tool. I follow these white lines and I strengthen these white lines. They will be more visible and we will have a better contrast in the image. Also here we have some nice lines. Everything here. You can drag this around here too. And we want to work a little bit here. And here. Now we can fine-tune what we have done. See, this is the area where we are working in. So we don't want to overdo it, not like this. Just to fine-tune it so we get a better contrast. I think around there. And lift it up on the highlights. Not much. Much better. Then we close it. And I can fine-tune the color temperature a little bit. Let's see. A little bit to the left, we get cooler tones. To the right, we have warmer tones. So there are no truths here. It's up to you, but I prefer a little bit cooler tones. Then we have cooler tones here in the foreground, in contrast to the warmer tones here on the sky. So I think we are close now, and let's see the picture in full frame. Yes, very nice. I think we're done. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.